I can't take the WNBA serious anymore. They hate their only cash cow in Caitlin Clark. This is the only league on earth where the players have dated each other. Now they've fined Caitlin Clark and Rhyne Howard $30 apiece for just jawing at each other on the court.
The WNBA has once again shown its true colors, this time slapping a fine on Caitlin Clark for the unforgivable crime of standing up for herself during a heated exchange with Atlanta Dream's Rhyne Howard. In a league that claims to champion strong women, apparently that strength comes with conditions, and those conditions seem to change depending on which player we're talking about. This incident exposes the league's inconsistent discipline and troubling habit of punishing what makes basketball compelling while ignoring real issues in women's basketball.
You know, there'll be the big talked about moment, Rhyne Howard, Caitlin Clark, jawing back and forth. But there's another example, right? Clark in that moment saying, I'm not scared of you. You know, I'm not afraid. Then giving her a sarcastic thumb.
The tension reached its boiling point during the Indiana Fever's revenge game against the Atlanta Dream, where emotions ran high as both teams battled for supremacy on the court. The Fever had suffered a disappointing loss to Atlanta just 2 days earlier, and Thursday night's matchup at State Farm Arena was their chance to even the score. With 17,044 fans packed into the arena, many of whom had shelled out significant money specifically to watch Caitlin Clark perform, the stage was set for drama.
Well, what was that about, man? She was saying, don't do that again. But I'm trying to figure out why she gets so mad. I guess because of the push right there. Kind of like a get off me a little bit. But she's holding it right there. Look at the hand checking, right? We got the hand checking going on the hip. Putting it on the chest. How you hand checking? You can't hand check. This isn't the 80s. What are we doing? Hold on, man. She's hand checking right here. Then Caitlin trying to get by, right? But her hand's still there. Her hand's still there. She up here hand checking. Yeah, get up off me, man.
What unfolded was a masterclass in competitive basketball, but also a revealing glimpse into the current state of WNBA politics. During the heated 81-76 victory for Indiana, Clark found herself in a face-to-face confrontation with Atlanta's Rhyne Howard, a moment that would define not just the game, but the league's subsequent response to competitive fire. The exchange was everything you'd expect from two elite athletes fighting for every possession in a crucial game. Intense, passionate, and absolutely fundamental to what makes basketball compelling.
But I just don't know what it is about giving Caitlin Clark foul calls that has the referees so averse, but calling more on her. And basketball is so mental. Like when you get into someone's head, it can like really mess the rest of their game up. It can mess the momentum up. It can just...
Howard, looking to establish dominance and perhaps rattle the league's biggest star, initiated contact that went beyond the typical boundaries of basketball competition. But instead of backing down or seeking protection from referees, Clark stood her ground with the kind of backbone that has defined her entire career. In a moment that should have been celebrated as competitive excellence, Clark looked Howard directly in the eye and delivered a line that perfectly encapsulated her fearless approach to the game. I'm not scared of you.
And in case you're wondering what Caitlin Clark said just there was, I'm not scared of you. She's going to have to wear a hard hat this season. I mean, seriously. The league is going to try to take her out in every game. There's no...
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. The crowd erupted at this display of competitive spirit, witnessing exactly the kind of intensity that makes professional sports appointment television. Here was basketball at its purest. Two elite athletes testing each other's resolve with neither willing to give an inch. It was the kind of moment that creates legendary rivalries and drives fan engagement through the roof. But apparently, in the WNBA's current reality, standing up for yourself comes with a price tag. What happened next perfectly illustrates everything wrong with the WNBA's current approach to discipline and player management. Rather than celebrating Clark's competitive fire or recognizing the incident as a natural part of professional basketball, the league decided that her response to Howard's aggression warranted financial punishment. A fine, a modest $30.00, might seem insignificant in monetary terms, but the message it sends is anything but small. This disciplinary action raises fundamental questions about what the WNBA actually wants from its players. On the one hand, the league constantly promotes itself as a showcase for strong, independent women who refuse to be intimidated or pushed around. Their marketing campaigns celebrate female empowerment, competitive excellence, and the kind of mental toughness that defines elite athletes. But when one of their brightest stars actually displays these qualities in real time, the response is a fine and implicit criticism.
I did really enjoy seeing the return of Trash Talk Caitlin Clark, because sometimes people forget, like, it's a fun little extra add-on of her game. She and Rhyne Howard got into it a bit early, where Rhyne Howard was like, "You're in Atlanta," and Caitlin was like, "I'm not."
The timing of this punishment is particularly revealing. Clark has spent the entire season dealing with increasingly aggressive play from opponents who seem more interested in testing her resolve than playing basketball. From Angel Reese's ongoing social media campaign to the various hard fouls and confrontations that have become routine parts of Clark's game experience, she has consistently handled herself with professionalism and grace. But the moment she finally speaks up for herself, using words rather than retaliation, the league decides this crosses some imaginary line. This selective enforcement creates a dangerous precedent for how the WNBA handles competitive intensity. The league seems perfectly comfortable allowing months of social media warfare, passive-aggressive comments, and manufactured controversies to fester without intervention. Players can spend entire seasons throwing subtle shade, posting cryptic messages, and engaging in behavior designed to undermine their competitors' reputations. But a direct, honest statement made in the heat of competition? That apparently requires immediate financial consequences.
Now fans are petitioning for the All-Star Game to not be held in Indiana because it's clearly not safe. There's a petition for Dave Portnoy to never be able to attend WNBA games. There is a petition for Caitlin Clark to be arrested. I'm not joking when I say this. Arrested. This is something that has also gone viral on social media. And I'm only bringing this up because the WNBA pays attention to what's going on social media. So if they're paying attention to it, I'm following what the league is saying. Like what the precedents that the league is setting, I'm following that because I'm covering the league. If they're going to pay attention to viral things on social media, I guess we have to also.
The most troubling aspect of this entire situation isn't the fine itself. It's what the fine represents in the broader context of WNBA discipline. The league has established a clear pattern of inconsistent enforcement that seems to depend more on which players are involved than on the actual severity of the incidents. This creates a two-tiered system of justice that undermines the league's credibility and sends confusing messages about acceptable behavior. Consider the contrast between how the league has handled Clark's direct, honest confrontation with Howard and their response to other ongoing controversies. Angel Reese has spent months engaged in what can only be described as a sustained campaign against Clark, using social media platforms to relitigate basketball plays and maintain artificial drama. This behavior has continued unchecked, without fines, warnings, or any apparent concern from league officials about its impact on the sport's image. The message this sends is unmistakable. Passive-aggressive behavior, social media warfare, and manufactured controversies are acceptable forms of competition, but direct communication between players on the court crosses the line. This backwards approach to discipline prioritizes artificial harmony over authentic competitive fire, creating an environment where players are encouraged to take their grievances to social media rather than settling them between the lines like professional athletes.
I'm not scared of you. With that face. You know, and that's competing. That's good basketball. That's fine. Howard wanted the challenge. I loved it. I love that. You just can't let, people play Clark like they're bumping her at the line of scrimmage and not call a foul. You got to call those fouls. Get them in foul trouble. But that's why Stephanie White wants to get her off the ball some, too. I've seen a lot of fans complain about that. That's one of the reasons, to free her up from that. Also to, just get things moving in general. And then she can command the offense down the stretch in crunch time.
This double standard becomes even more problematic when we consider the broader implications for young fans watching the league. What lesson are we teaching aspiring basketball players when we fine someone for standing up for themselves while ignoring months of social media drama? We're essentially telling them that direct confrontation is worse than behind-the-scenes manipulation, that honest communication is more dangerous than passive-aggressive campaigns designed to damage reputations. This incident fits into a troubling pattern of how the WNBA has handled situations involving Clark throughout the season. The league seems caught between wanting to protect their biggest star and wanting to appear impartial in their treatment of all players. The result is a confusing mix of responses that often seem to punish Clark for the very qualities that have made her so successful. When Clark receives hard fouls that clearly cross the line from basketball play into personal targeting, the league often responds with concerns about player safety and suggestions that certain environments might not be suitable for competition 1. But when Clark finally stands up for herself verbally, using words instead of retaliation, she gets fined. This creates an impossible situation where she's expected to absorb physical and mental pressure without ever responding in kind.
And you know what? Caitlin Clark's not backing away. I'm not considering that backing away. She's trying to be physical. And then at halftime, the funniest interaction I've seen came at halftime. This is one of my favorite reactions. Obviously, video from Greggy518. So Rhyne Howard says something towards somebody. Probably towards the bench or something. Says something. And then points at Caitlin and says something. Caitlin's response, thumbs up. Like, this is what you want. And by the way, these are the time. This is hilarious. Caitlin she's trying to trash talk and Caitlin puts a thumbs up. I will say,
the league's handling of the Howard incident also reveals their fundamental misunderstanding of what actually drives fan engagement and long-term success. The 17,044 fans who packed State Farm Arena didn't come to watch sanitized, emotion-free basketball. They came to see elite athletes competing at the highest level, complete with the intensity, passion, and occasional confrontations that define professional sports at its best. By fining Clark for displaying exactly the kind of competitive fire that fans pay to see, the league is essentially punishing the qualities that make their product marketable. This backwards approach to discipline threatens to turn WNBA games into sterile exhibitions where players are afraid to show genuine emotion or engage in the kind of competitive dialogue that has defined basketball for decades. The fine against Clark doesn't just affect her. It sends a chilling message to every player in the league about the boundaries of acceptable competitive behavior. When the league's biggest star gets punished for standing up for herself, other players take notice and adjust their behavior accordingly. This creates an environment where authentic competitive fire gets replaced by calculated performance designed to avoid disciplinary action.
Now, in my opinion, this is Caitlin Clark's true rivalry, right? This is one of them. She has multiple that she can have in the league, but this one right here, yeah, this is a rivalry. And the way that the skill level is matched, that's the thing, man. Like, Reese, she's a rebounder. She gets down in the paint, you know. I don't necessarily see her scoring and doing these crazy shots like Caitlin and Howard can do. And that's where the comparison should come at. That's where the real rivalry is at. You want a story, ESPN? This is your story right here. Get these two talked about, all right?
Basketball at its highest level has always been as much a mental game as a physical one. The ability to engage in competitive dialogue, to test opponents' resolve through words as well as actions, has been a fundamental part of the sport since its inception. From Larry Bird's legendary trash talk to Michael Jordan's psychological warfare, the greatest players have always understood that competition extends beyond just making shots and playing defense. By fining Clark for engaging in exactly this kind of competitive communication, the WNBA is essentially removing one of the most compelling aspects of professional basketball. They're creating a sanitized version of the sport, where players are expected to compete at the highest level while maintaining artificial politeness that exists nowhere else in professional athletics. This approach doesn't just hurt the quality of competition, it actively works against the league's stated goals of growing fan engagement and establishing itself as a major professional sports entity. Fans don't tune in to watch athletes hold back their competitive instincts. They want to see genuine emotion, real stakes, and the kind of intensity that only emerges when everything is on the line.
This is the reason not to watch the WNBA. Because we came there to watch basketball, right? Caitlin Clark was doing stuff where we were like, oh my God, look at the threes, the logo threes, oh my God. It was about the basketball. And instead, you know where we are now?
Where are we at?
It's a bad episode of Basketball Wives.
Oh, no.
That's what we have.
Basketball Wives. Shout out to Evelyn Lazard.
Perhaps the most concerning aspect of this fine is what it suggests about the WNBA's fundamental approach to promoting women's athletics. The league seems to be operating under the assumption that women's sports must be somehow nicer or more polite than men's sports to be acceptable to mainstream audiences. This patronizing attitude does more damage to women's athletics than any hard foul or heated exchange ever could. The reality is that fans of women's sports want the same thing fans of any sport want: authentic competition featuring elite athletes giving everything they have to win. They don't need or want a watered-down version of basketball where players are expected to maintain artificial sweetness while competing for championships and career-defining moments. By fining Clark for displaying the same competitive fire that would be celebrated in male athletes, the league is perpetuating outdated stereotypes about how women should behave in competitive situations. They're suggesting that standing up for yourself, speaking directly to opponents, and showing genuine emotion are somehow inappropriate for female athletes. This backwards thinking not only hurts the current product, but also sends troubling messages to young girls who might be considering careers in professional athletics. When we fine players for showing backbone and competitive spirit, we're telling the next generation that success comes with conditions that don't apply to their male counterparts.
And you know, she's getting a lot of heat for backing down from the Angel Reese situation, which in my opinion was the smartest thing to do, because I'm sorry, anybody that's saying that Caitlin Clark needs to like get into someone's face after something happens, they just don't understand the eyes that are on Caitlin Clark, and like anything she does gets scrutinized to like levels that, you know, the WNBA does not have. Like, she's getting a lot of heat for backing away from Angel Reese when Angel Reese kind of went up and like clapped back at her when she fell on the floor. And it's like, I think that was probably the smartest thing to do.
The $30.00 fine levied against Caitlin Clark for telling Rhyne Howard, "I'm not scared of you," represents everything wrong with the WNBA's current approach to discipline and player management. In a league that claims to celebrate strong women, they've chosen to punish one of their brightest stars for displaying exactly the kind of competitive fire that makes professional sports compelling. This incident reveals a troubling pattern of inconsistent enforcement that seems to prioritize artificial harmony over authentic competition. While players can engage in months-long social media campaigns designed to undermine their competitors, direct communication between athletes on the court apparently crosses the line. This backwards approach to discipline threatens to sanitize the sport and remove the very qualities that drive fan engagement. The league's handling of this situation sends a chilling message about acceptable behavior for female athletes and perpetuates outdated stereotypes about how women should compete. By fining Clark for standing up for herself, the WNBA is telling the next generation of players that success comes with conditions that don't apply to their male counterparts. Until the WNBA recognizes that competitive fire is an asset rather than a liability, they'll continue to undermine their own product and the athletes who make it special.